Charles, I don't know if you could speak to somebody, but I had ordered a polar vortex and it hasn't arrived yet.
It'll probably arrive about 30 minutes into our walk today.
Well, seriously though, wasn't it supposed to be super
Yeah,
freezing storm and then nothing happened?
yeah. Or was that, are you referring to the riots in all 50 state capitals and in
Did that happen?
That didn't happen either.
So they're just sort of putting out this information to freak people out and then...
It's the Department of Predicting Incorrectly seems to be the main business of a lot of these thought, in quotes, leaders. So Jason, where are we?
We're, I guess we're in the West Village here. We're right outside the Independent Film Channel movie theater that's been closed for a really long time. We're close to the that basketball court here that they...
Yeah, this used to be a fun place to play when I was a kid. That is, since I'm never going to go there again, I can point out the McDonald's right over here. That last time it's right to your right there.
Is it still open?
Is it open?
Huh. It's not.
It's not open.
Holy cow.
Let's check this out.
Wow. That's among one of the first times, I mean,
Wow.
This is the second one we've seen, but in my entire life, this might be the third McDonald's I've ever seen closed.
This is amazing. This explains why the last time I was here, I walked in to get coffee in the morning, and they said I had a sign up that said no coffee. At breakfast time, how do you have no coffee to sell? Because you're going out of business.
When I was in college, I went into a McDonald's and they said they're out of hamburgers, and I was like, well, why the hell are you open?
Did you maybe take a wrong turn on a trip and end up in Moscow? And then across the way we have the 7-Eleven.
That's been thriving. There's a lot of 7-Elevens opening.
And what they do in the summer is they were playing classical music out front to discourage, let's refer to them as petitioners rather than hobos or bums or panhandlers, to discourage them from congregating outside.
Wait, sorry. We are live.
Good. So let's keep, in the interest of not turning to ice, let's keep...
Yeah. Well, you know, one thing I want to mention to everybody, Charles, is that on the walk over here, there's just a lot more business closures. I know I'm sounding like a broken record, but
right.
You know that place, the Copper Still, is kind of close to my apartment.
Yeah.
They were early on building their outdoor thing and had
Sure.
a pretty thriving business in there,
Yeah.
certainly during the summer, and then even up until recently. But I noticed that virtually every single restaurant on that block
Right.
is closed now. I don't know if it's because it's just so cold that nobody's going there, or if they're actually closing once and for all.
Because you lost hope and you got no money and you got debt. And
That's
just
what I
say,
mean. I mean, if you're a business owner and you're kind of breaking your ass every day to slowly go out of business, there's going to come a time where you just decide to throw in the towel, right?
Right, which is what's basically happening across the city. Now you see these are the stands for people who have items to sell, and it's so cold that I guess they've given up today. We have a fine, this is technically a nice part of the village in theory, but a whole bunch of junky tattoo, porn, smoke shops have come in here.
Well, for as long as I've lived in the city, this has been the tattoo and smoke shop section of town.
Well, my context of living in the city goes back
Yeah.
a bit further.
Yeah.
We won't say how far back. But
Since the 90s, this is the go-to spot for bombs and tattoos.
right.
But we're one day into a hellish nightmare that a lot of people never thought would occur.
Well, and I was amazed, and people didn't recognize the theme song that was used for the inauguration. When
Lady Gaga?
No, when Biden came out at first, it was "Hail to the Thief,"
Oh, right.
not "Hail to the Chief."
Oh, what a disingenuous speech that was, Charles, talking about facts and truth and unity and
Right.
integrity. It's like, get that old man off the damn stage.
That's right. Yeah, he's like the 80-odd-year-old.
So wait a second, Charles. I didn't notice this, but across the street there, I mean, look at that. It's just straight up buildings in front of the, I mean, how is that outdoor? Wood building with windows.
Shack, I was referred to. And then to your right, look at this gigantic store that's out. I mean,
I don't remember what this was.
I think it was, I actually don't remember. what it was. But
It's like the systematic dismantling of the city.
right. And so there was. I got an email from somebody who made a fair point that I didn't explain when I said I thought the market should go lower. I haven't explained yet why I think it hasn't gone lower. And let me start by saying that with Biden, we have a long track record where I believe it was the defense secretary under Obama, the initial one, I believe said that Biden's, if you examine his career and look at every major decision he's made in politics,
Bad.
he distinguishes himself by always being incorrect/wrong. Now, Biden's career in politics goes back to the 70s. So at a time, or even the 60s, at a time when we still were very much in a Cold War, loggerheads with the former Soviet Union and communist China. And in that period, the United States really was the only big unified market in the world. Europe had not tried their experiment with the EU. India was flat on its ass.
No bricks.
No BRICS, yeah. and so we then, this is a short summary of it, but we then, by 88 and 89, we fell for the unregulated globalism ploy, and we end up with Bush 1, then Clinton, then Bush 2, and Obama. Then we have the gigantic crash, 2007 to 2009. Now, there we have scrawled on this one, rents too high. I don't think that's the problem.
Exactly.
Not
all
for
these
this building.
places are out, and,
Yeah.
and not to interrupt the flow, but I have been seeing a lot of new businesses that are opening that are decidedly un-New York, using a huge amount of space for a business that normally would have taken a lot smaller space.
Right, and look across the street here.
I know Petland went out. That was there the last time I went by.
And this Waverly restaurant used to be, it's interesting, it used to be really good, and then they spent money and they shut it down to redo it, and it was fundamentally, I thought, more or less the same, only with higher prices.
Yeah.
And then the pandemic hit, and look at that, that's a shack.
It's
Why would
terrible.
you come eat at a shack? It just doesn't make any sense. So getting back on why I think the Biden economy is already proving to be a disaster, if you had untapped borrowing capacities at government level, you could, in theory, borrow a lot of money to paper over the problems of a nation. But we don't have that much untapped borrowing capacity anymore, because all we've been doing since the internet bubble, really since Bill Clinton, this used to be Staples, by the way, another one that's out. All we've been doing is piling debt on our various state, local, and federal governments and running big deficits, whether it's at government level, personal level, corporate level, et cetera. So the level of debt that's out there that has to be paid off eventually is monstrous in relation to the ability of whether it's individuals, businesses, whoever's borrowed the money, to pay that money back. It's not as simple. People get into a rut where they say, okay, I can afford to buy this car loan because it's no interest or it's low interest, and you don't think through how much money you need to make to pay off the principal.
The car, yeah.
Right? Because so individual tax rates under Biden are certainly going up, and he said
New York
only
State
the
also.
Huh? And New York State and
also.
City, and so the chunk that gets taken out of your paycheck that goes to government is going to go higher.
Yeah.
The pressure on your wages is going to be intense, both from competition and from technological replacement, where people are going to be just you put up the minimum wage to $15, and at McDonald's you're going to be buying
Hire robots.
You saw what happened to McDonald's.
Yeah. Well, I also saw the McDonald's, they've added like ATM machines at some of them to order the food.
Really?
I mean,
Yeah,
a while
that's
ago.
absolutely true. Yeah. So when you look at that, you can look at this information for yourselves. You don't have to rely on me. You go check it out. It's on the NIPA tables, the National Income and Product Account tables of the Bureau of Economic Analysis, the Commerce Department. It's all online. You can go back to 1929, and you can look at how much is the amount of money that's generated by people working in businesses such as yours, sole proprietorship, and people on salary, on wages in the private sector. You can look at that total pool of money pre-tax. You can also then figure out how much the government takes in taxes of that. And you can see that flow of money has been not climbing all that rapidly. And then you can look at the mountain of debt that's piled on our economy going back to 1945. That you get from the Federal Reserve's Z1 statistics, which are also online. And both of these are prepared consistently, these figures I'm talking about, they're prepared on a consistent basis with footnotes and explanations, and supposedly are very good estimates of the truth. Now, maybe they're wrong, but when I see a long time series set of information prepared in theory consistently, I'm interested in the trend. I'm not interested necessarily in one observation. If I see a trend that just shows debt going like this and income going like this, I know I'm going into a leveraged decapitation. It's not going to help. And so here, Biden is talking, or he campaigned in quotes to the extent he actually campaigned.
In the basement, yeah.
Right, on a basis where he said he's going to soak the rich. He's going to punish, the most productive, one of the most productive sectors of the economy, the energy sector.
Right.
Punish that.
Right, where we've just become the biggest producer of energy. Take that away.
And I mean, his solution of lessening inequality is to take the best. Here we are in Shack Central.
I actually like that restaurant, Jeans, but they're that's a whole. How can they?
Well, my whole thing, Jason, in the winter when somebody suggests let's go out to dinner, I kind of like to eat inside.
Right.
Call me stupid. But anyway, so going back to why do I think Biden's going to crush the economy, I think what he's doing is he's increasing bureaucracy. He's not trimming the government sector. If anything, he's going to enhance it. He's going to go back to an aggressive regulatory approach that's going to encourage capital flight and discourage risk-taking. And at a certain moment, astute investors are going to look at this and say, I call top, I'm out of here. And they're just going to sell because we've had the prices of stocks have risen dramatically off their March 2020 lows. In a historical perspective, they're very high. You've got to assume that capital gains tax rates are going to go up under a Biden plan. It might be punitively so. So there'll come a moment where people are just going to say, we're out.
Out of what? The United States?
Well, they're out of the stock market. I mean, to date, because savers, and there are thankfully a lot of savers don't really have an opportunity to collect much on a savings account. You go through the math and you say, well, I can get 0.1% per year on a savings deposit held at Chase Manhattan Bank, or
do they even pay that in savings accounts?
I don't even know if they pay that much, or because I don't look at that, and or you get 4% on Verizon or 7% on Exxon and dividend yield, and so you make decisions like that, not because you've studied whether Exxon is borrowing to pay its dividend or whether it's overstretched or whether Verizon has competitive pressures. You make those decisions because you're a retiree and you need income. And you just say, well, look, Verizon's a big company.
Yeah, low risk.
So in the case of the
so this is something new coming in. Sorry, in the case of the what?
In the case of the Trump election, as it became apparent that Trump was going to be the next president, the stock market started rising because they anticipated his approach
pro-stock market
would be pro-capital, pro-investor, and would undo some of the major negative programs from an economic standpoint put on by what I argued is an anti-capitalist administration. I was the first, I believe, May 15th, 2009, CNBC London with Mark Faber and others. I was asked to describe the Obama administration's economic policies, and I said it's simple. It's a war on capitalism.
Yeah.
At CNBC live from London.
Right, we see that now, right?
Right, and so they waged a war on capitalism, and they nearly won. Trump undid a lot of that, but not enough of it. And now we have Biden. They say there is no I in team, the word team, but there is an I in idiot. And Biden puts the I in idiot. I mean, economically, he is basically a complete stone cold moron.
I agree.
Yet yet America voted for him, in theory.
I don't think that's correct, but somehow it happened. And then the other thing I was going to say is this war on capitalism. I think that Obama continued that even after he left. And what we're seeing now is there's a direct connection to Barack Obama. This is not an accident.
Well, yeah, it's kind of ironic that a guy waging a war on capitalism would also be in the business of collecting mansions in Hawaii and
Right,
Chicago
and deals
DC.
with Netflix and book companies and whatnot. So now, Charles, this fancy-looking building has been constructed quite rapidly.
Yeah.
I mean, it's going to be apartments, obviously, I guess. Huge windows, like,
Yeah.
that seems kind of expensive for a city where most people are going out of business and leaving.
Well, I think the way I've been told by people in the real estate business, the way some look at it,
Sidewalk is closed, so we can walk through
walk
this
through the
tunnel.
hole there. The way some look at it is if you own a property that's, let's say, a tear down, where it's vacant, and you can get a construction loan and feel confident you get a mortgage loan on the building, what you do is you tear it down, you put the cost of construction, including interest, into the first mortgage, and you hope that during the period of time that you go through this exercise, a year to 2 years or longer, that the market begins to come back, and you then got some of the most modern space on the market, not antiquated old stuff.
Right.
And that could lead you to making very bad decisions.
Well, it seems like there's a lot of that going on, though.
Yeah.
On TV, right? And how you're seeing.
Yeah. So we're walking steadily up 6th Avenue, northbound. This is the route I used to walk up to the library. It holds the distinction of being, or the benefit, I think, or attribute of being fundamentally flat. So unlike walking up Park Avenue or some of these other avenues where you have to go up a big hill, and then it's pretty easy on you, generally speaking.
Yeah. What about these executive orders that Joe Biden signed where he's got a mask mandate? I was happy to see that it only applies to federal buildings, but I mean, that's almost like a shoe mandate when you're outside. I thought they already had that.
Right. Well, again, he's starting with the executive orders. Sorry. And, like, actually not that story, but just being polite.
Well, that guy wasn't looking where he was going.
I know, that's why I'm not sorry. But there's some more stuff for sale.
Yeah.
He's starting with the stuff that's window dressing, and Bannon said this morning on War Room Pandemic, that's exactly what Trump did in the beginning. You do the executive orders that you can do.
Make your base happy.
But meanwhile, they're readying legislation that will be far more damaging and invasive, as always is the case. I mean, whether it's a Republican or a Democrat.
What do you mean, making it illegal to be a white male, or just name you a terrorist because you are that?
They're definitely going, I mean, that speech, you started to talk about the so-called inaugural speech. I mean, here's somebody who supposedly has a lot of gravitas and knows the way of Washington. And Chris Wallace of Fox described that speech as the best inauguration speech he's ever heard. And I guess including Kennedy, which is surprising. But anyway, that speech was so filled with platitudes, nostrums, meaningless statements, and it was delivered with a lack of energy and a lack of empathy that was really something to an empty auditorium, basically. An
Yes.
empty crowd.
Empty crowd. Oh yeah, that's what I wanted to mention. And this is, sort of obvious to anybody who's been looking. If you recall, when I went up to Times Square for New Year's Eve, which was definitely not any kind of political, that would have been people from both sides who wanted to go to Times Square. And nobody was allowed in except for de Blasio and his wife and whoever else had a pro-pedophile mask on their face. But all the people who wanted to go to Times Square were jamming every street and every entry point that the police were blocking. So it's quite clear that a lot of people came to New York to celebrate New Year's Eve but weren't let in.
Right.
By contrast, yesterday, there was nobody jamming the entry points to try to get in and the police were turning away. It was myself a bunch of other independent journalists, and nobody. There was like 1,000 people there.
Right, and meanwhile, last night out in Seattle and Portland and Denver,
Right.
apparently the Antifa people were rioting, saying they don't want Biden, they want a revolution.
Okay.
Right.
I'm not surprised to hear that, but I guess, does Joe Biden think Antifa is real now?
I don't know. And then we had that traitor, John Brennan,
Oh,
talking about how he gave some interview, I think it was MSNBC or CNN, saying that we need to deal with all extremists. He came along with fascists,
why don't we
bigots,
start with him?
fascists, bigots, but then he said, comma, even libertarians. Careful.
Those evil libertarians.
Even.
Hey, I gotta watch out for the people riding electric unicycles on the sidewalk. That's perfect. Charles, society has deteriorated here in New York.
Yeah, New York City's come to resemble that bar in Star Wars, you know, with all the
The
strange
Moss Eisley Spaceport. It's the most, what does he say?
people. I don't know.
The most wretched hive of scum and villainy in the known universe.
That's right, that's Manhattan.
You know, people are going to be confused. Some people watching right now, Charles, that I'm back in New York because I was
are?
in D.C. I think I am. I was in D.C. yesterday, and I believe everybody presumed it was the start of my road trip. But that was just a little one-off to visit Dumb Joe on his historic, you know, we can't even say what we think about this because it's considered, you know, what? I don't know, blasphemy or fake
Right.
news or something. I wanted to point something out, Charles, to you and to the viewers, where I posted yesterday's trip to the inauguration. First of all, it got broken into two pieces, unfortunately, on the Jason Goodman channel, so people can either go to Subscribestar or Patreon to watch the longer thing. They now tell you Joe Biden is the president of the United States. So I think if you make any video about Donald Trump, they're going to fact check it and say, forget about Donald Trump, Joe Biden's the president. I could say Donald Trump is a real estate developer, and they might tell us that.
Yeah, it's pretty pathetic. But, you know, get used to it. There's some, and Zero Hedge reporting today that there's some dim-witted, of which there are many, professor at Smith College in Northampton, who is saying that there's no way to reason with Republicans. They must be crushed.
Oh,
And that anybody who supported Trump should never be able to have a regular job again.
that's nice.
You know, just, that's a real tolerant
Right.
approach to life. And again, coming from a woman who collects a salary working at a charity.
Right.
Right? And I was under the impression that charities are not supposed to be engaged in partisan political activities, let alone promoting violence against dissenters. I mean, imagine if Donald Trump had gone even an inch down the track of saying, now what we need to do is identify all the Obama Clinton supporters
Right.
and crush them.
I think he's right, but, well, he would have been right had he said that, but obviously that's an unreasonable thing to say. Charles, you know, I know you know this place, but they've got this,
Blocking.
you got this Marilyn Monroe sculpture. This is the Limelight that was a church that
Sure.
became an ecstasy-selling nightclub and
Right.
now is some kind of weird shopping mall
Yep.
with a
And
brick oven pizza in it.
It should do well, but it always gets shut down.
Yeah. And then this place is available for rent. It was a deli, I think.
Yeah. Everything seems so much on every block. There's something for sale or for rent.
Yeah. It's really bad. Now, I haven't heard too much from Cuomo. Oh, yeah. On my walk over to see you, a viewer stopped me on the street, said hello, and wanted me to mention that Andrew Cuomo was in Jeffrey Epstein's Black Book as reported by Gawker in 2006 or 2008.
I wouldn't doubt it.
So that's
doubt it.
interesting, right?
And I think, you know, the Black Book, I'm sure there's a Black Book, and then there's another book that we haven't seen yet.
Black books matter, Charles.
Yeah. So going back, I didn't finish the thought about why the stock prices should go
Yeah.
down. Seasoned investors will tell you that anyone who has the experience to value,
GameStop out.
to figure out or to assess the financial statements and prospects of an individual company can always tell you whether it looks to that expert, that seasoned investor, whether a given company is under or overvalued. These are the machines you were talking about.
Yeah, right, exactly. So you can just order your food from that.
Because none of those machines turns around and takes the salary that it earns and spends a portion of it on buying clothes and food or whatever, rippling through the economy. So this hollowing out of the economy by the bureaucrats, here's another story, hollowing out the economy by the bureaucrats, crushing private sector activity, can work, in quotes, so long as you can borrow money to cover over your problems. And so long as no lender says you don't have to pay that money back. Oh, sorry, no lender says you have to pay the money back.
Oh, I didn't know that.
So, careful.
Those guys seem potentially...
They're eating Chick-fil-A.
I was going to say, Chick-fil-A has taken over... this was Olive Garden.
Yeah, Olive Garden wasn't bad, actually.
I don't
For
like
kids.
Olive Garden.
No, when you kids and skiing, that's great. But, so any veteran investor could look and say, this market looks, or this company or this debt security looks overvalued or undervalued. You may not be right all the time, but you could definitely decide that something looks under or overvalued. And I could say, as somebody following this since 1978 or maybe even earlier, because I was interested in high school and this stuff, the market, the stock market, clearly appears to be overvalued, if not stretched to levels, naturally taught levels. We haven't yet, some would refer to them as policies, I refer to them as prison sentences that are going to come from Joe Biden. We haven't learned what the torture will be that's coming for us with specifics. Right, how high the taxes are going to go,
Right.
what industries will be favored, what will be crippled.
Well, you don't think 11 million brand new citizens who want free health care and free college and debt relief, that's not going to help the economy, you don't think?
No, I don't think so. It's not just the 11, it's the others behind them, and it's the fact that we see in America this teetering, like, you know, when a top is spinning and it stops spinning, it starts going one side and the other side, and then it falls down. That's what you see in the economy, in politics here. You saw Clinton, at least on balancing the budget, he did a very good job in the end. I mean, in fact, I think it's the only year, his final year, when he was done getting disciplined for diddling Monica Lewinsky. That's a year in which he actually was able, or the federal debt shrank, and there was a small budget surplus. Ever since then, starting with 9/11 and the response to that, then Obama and the response to the credit crisis.
Isn't that new there? Hard living something or other? What is that?
I don't know. But ever since then, we've had Clinton was a moderate Democrat, looking in hindsight. You had Bush was a pro-war, wasteful Republican.
What the hell is that?
I don't know.
It's like a guy wearing a superhero suit.
It's a Heart Vein NYC. It's some kind of medical building.
Glamoy. And then there's a whole building for sale right next to it.
Right. Well, I'd say almost anywhere in New York, there's probably a building for sale right next to it. But
Veterinary emergency
so if I just
group.
finish the thought just for a second. So what you see in looking at this recent history is that we're going to go in one direction, veer off in one direction, that may or may not work, then there'll be a counter reaction. And if you're an investor looking to put money to work for long periods of time, you don't like to see that, because
Too volatile?
it's too, you can't really count. If you're going to put up an office building that your family wants to own for 60 years, you don't want to put it up in a place where it's going
Be shut down. And
So
yeah, people are saying like, oh, you're going to rent your apartment and whatnot. I don't really feel safe doing that, because someone will decide to not pay the rent, and
it's tough to evict them.
and then you can't evict them. There'll be a moratorium on eviction, and I'll be paying for somebody else to live in my apartment. So I'm still trying to sort out what I'm going to do with that. Perhaps I don't want to go into too much detail, but someone in my family might take it over.
But there is a moratorium on eviction in
That's
Europe.
what I mean. So renting it,
Right.
if you're relying on renting your one thing to make money to do something else, you just got screwed. Joe
Right.
Biden's up there talking like, oh, we're going to give you relief on this and that. I know people around the country who are small business people who buy properties to rent them, and when you start making it favorable to the renter and not favorable to the landlord, there's somebody on the end of that deal
Right.
getting screwed.
Exactly. And last time I checked, I mean, the idiot in chief has not distinguished himself economically other than somehow managing
Stealing money.
Huh?
Stealing money, he's distinguished himself
Well,
economically.
Having never really worked in the private sector officially, maybe being at the behest of the private sector when he was in government, the man has how many mansions?
Yeah, I know.
And how many expensive cars? And whichever. I don't know.
Hey, oh, blueberry hazard. Charles, has anybody ever answered the question of, everybody was upset that Trump only paid $750 in taxes, but no one ever asked Joe Biden what the hell he did to make so much money that he had to pay $3 million.
He had speaking fees and
But really, I mean, don't you have to make like $6, $7, $8 million bucks to pay $3 million
Oh, yeah.
in taxes?
Yeah.
He didn't make that much from speaking
yes, he
fees.
did. He did.
He did?
Yeah, absolutely. These speaking fees. Clinton's top fee, I think, was $750 for one speech.
Yeah, but Joe Biden's not Bill Clinton.
I know. Yeah, but he's got a son. He's got, Joe Biden's more bankable than Bill Clinton. Bill Clinton's out of government.
Well,
But, on that subject, we had done some work about the McCain Institute, and I'd heard that the Biden family charity had to close, but I didn't remember till seeing it yesterday that there's a Biden Institute.
yeah.
And the Biden Institute has decided that they're not going to reveal any information about donors.
What?
And, well, why would you?
Why
Control
are you
the government.
allowed to do that?
You have to do it, but he's going to say, well, I'm the president. I do what I want.
Aha.
Nancy Pelosi's not going to force me to do it. Chuck Schumer's not going to force me to do it. F you. And
Wow.
then I saw this thing about the Biden Penn Institute, which is something when he was a doofus in residence.
We just lost our connection, so hang on.
Yeah.
Okay, I think that should have restarted. I took special precaution when I set this up so that if we lost the thing, we could reconnect. Let me just make sure it worked.
Yeah.
Hopefully we didn't lose our viewers there. We should be back to live. So all these technical, tricky things, Charles. I think
You
we're
good?
back. Big buffer, somebody said, but I think we're back. Yeah, refresh good. There we go.
So the Biden Penn Institute, or the Penn Biden Institute, they literally installed him as a doofus in residence in Penn, and to do some hair sniffing.
Penn,
and-
the college?
Penn University, University of Pennsylvania, and that institute was run by who?
Sean Penn. I don't
Tony
know.
Blinken. The guy's going to be Secretary of State. Who can? Now we have the
Wait a
business.
minute. I don't think I realized that his name was actually Anthony. It could be Abe Blinken.
Right.
A
But it's
period
Blinken. Not.
That's
Anyway.
fine. It's still Abe Lincoln.
Yeah, a Blinken.
So he's running it. Yeah, here's Waldy's Wood Pizza closed. But so what is up with that guy? I don't remember the details.
Well,
about
the
him.
point is that the business model of having a foundation that nominally cares about international issues, that's associated with somebody who's aspiring to become president of the United States, is a way for foreign interests to turn around and
them
send money to somebody who might eventually become president, who can return the money favors many times over.
Right.
And on that subject, actually, there's a very interesting piece that I think you have links to in Just
Oh, yeah.
the News by John Solomon, who in that piece links one of the first examples, I think it's the second example, of what may be information declassified just recently by Trump on the way out the door. Now, the timing is pretty good here because we're getting
Really?
close to the office building.
Oh,
The
our
ad-
timing. I thought you meant I thought you meant Trump's timing in releasing the
No.
thing.
Our time. We're getting close to the place where, in theory, the Clinton Foundation had a bank account with Bank of America up here on like 33rd Street, or
Yep.
maybe 32nd. Was it 33rd?
33rd, yeah.
Yeah, and we've established that that is not a normal bank office, and there was no Clinton Foundation office near that location. It was instead a mile or so further away. Well, we're on our way to walk to a new office that we just found out about today that Hillary Clinton maintained on 45th Street, off of 6th Avenue,
It's a lot of offices they had.
which is a warning sign for fraud, actually.
I agree.
When you have a business or charity or an operation in an expensive city,
Yeah,
and
you would want to have as few offices
Right.
as possible.
you wouldn't want to have a lot of different
And
offices.
moving is expensive.
Well, I think the reason they did it this way is you have Hillary Clinton and Bill Clinton and Chelsea Clinton's grifting operation. That you can't have, go to the grifting department on 9th floor.
Right.
Tell them how much you want to
Moving it
grift.
around.
And we'll tell you what kind of special bonus treat you get at the end of the meeting. No, so
A
you
toaster.
have, if you're going to go discuss how to grift, you go to one place. If you're going to pretend that you're involved with charity, you go to the charity office. If you're going to pretend that you care about the political campaign, you go to the campaign office. So
in
we've already
Brooklyn,
been to the office down on Wall Street.
77.
In 17 we did that. And accountants, they're actually warning signs for fraud. They have a more formal title for that memo, but accountants write memos on what are signs you should look for if you're worried that somebody may be engaged in fraud, and this is one of them. So anyway, the memo that's attached to John Solomon's article is internal FBI communications, including emails back and forth to Comey, talking about a new investigation that until this morning I didn't know about.
Wow.
That the FBI had opened an investigation by the 25th of November 2014 into a foreign government, and it's unclear which one it is. I suspect it's because it says the blah, 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 in the sentence the, and then it has name blanked out and it says foreign government.
Why do they give you that? I've never seen a redacted document that gives you those kind of clues before.
I don't know.
And it seems linked in some way to this story that Patrick Byrne has been telling.
Right. So the point being, the thrust of John's story is that in this case, Hillary Clinton and her lawyer, David Kendall, and another partner, Kathleen Turner, were given the benefit of a defensive briefing. That's to say, the FBI went to them and said, listen, we're investigating this government, which we believe may be trying to influence the 2015-16 cycle. We want you to know, A, that we're doing that,
Right.
and B, that you should be careful. You should watch for this and watch for that.
And in contrast, they're trying to trick everybody related to Trump into telling them stuff that they can accuse them of lying about.
Well, I'd say it's worse. In contrast, with regard to Trump, they knew there was no Russian
Right.
angle. They had established that, so they needed to make one up. And they used FBI contractors and spies and whatever to implicate Trump falsely in his people.
Well, they're still at it. Did you see? I know you're not looking at Twitter anymore, but just right after the inauguration or just before the inauguration, Hillary Clinton had a tweet where she was
Right.
specifically saying that Trump was following Putin's orders
That
by
wasn't
demanding
no,
the.
you got that story wrong, my friend. Let me tell you what the real story is. Hillary Clinton has a podcast.
All right.
And, that's, I mean, in her case, at her age, with all of her money, you would think that she could have, if she wanted a show, she'd have a Netflix show, or she'd have, a cable news something.
Right.
But she's got a podcast, and
Wouldn't
she was interviewing.
MSNBC give her a contract in a second?
She was interviewing a fellow nearly octogenarian windbag, Nancy Pelosi, and the two of them were cackling on their brooms about Donald Trump was clearly following Putin's orders with regard to the January 6th
Right.
revolution.
Insurrection, whatever they're calling it.
Right. So anyway, back on the memo. This is it's like the other memos that you see in the FBI vault. It's a collection of internal memoranda. It says they started this investigation in November 25th, 2014, but they didn't get around to giving her a defensive briefing, I think, until October 2015. October 2015 is in the heat of the battle, right? I mean, she's just about to go into primaries, and had the real truth leaked out that the FBI was in fact investigating foreign governments for trying to gain influence with Hillary Clinton by donating money. And the suspicion is, when I read through the documents, that they were investigating the Clinton Foundation as the route through which the governments would provide the money. This latest revelation is interesting as well, because in the memos, the FBI internal memoranda, they have to list, there's something called Sentinel,
Right.
which is the FBI official
Like their
system.
database or something.
Right, and it asks, what's the Sentinel number or case file, whatever. And I noticed that in one case it said transitory, suggesting to me that they weren't going to put it in Sentinel. And another one, I think it flat out says it's not in Sentinel. So
Avoid FOIA and stuff like that, I guess.
So exactly. Well, also suggesting that we have enough suspicions already on the FBI, but suggesting that the real system is they claim they do it in this organized fashion on every case, but in reality, the case teams have the ability to say, no, let's not put that
Keep
over.
the files in Comey's underwear drawer.
Yeah, the stuff that might implicate the FBI and our friends, we're not going to put that in
Not going to
Sentinel.
investigate that.
So quite a set of revelations, and I suspect, given John's long-standing ties in DC and his efforts writing various articles and now at least one book on this subject, I suspect that he has a lot of information that's been embargoed, that has been declassified, and that he's going to start releasing it maybe on a daily basis or every other day. But when
What can we do about it now, though? It seems like if nothing happened under Trump, definitely nothing's going to happen with Biden.
Well, I don't honestly know. I mean, I think if the play is, and it's significant that Christopher Wray is staying on, Biden's keeping him on an FBI, so we know that was for a job well done. Thanks, Chris.
Right.
Glad you didn't implicate me and do your job. As a reward, since you know where all the bodies are buried,
Right.
now let's start persecuting Trump people. But
And that's just so obvious that was going to happen. We see a young Christopher Wray standing there with Comey and Mueller. He's obviously in, and he was involved in the whole
Enron
investigation of
task force.
Enron, right?
well, I think that it's
Part of the crew.
yeah, it's part of the crew. It's not moving in the right direction. But anyway, what the playbook here, I suspect, is to get Biden settled in, wait for, I gather yesterday I haven't checked this to make sure it isn't an invented video, but somebody posted him sitting, I think, at a desk or somewhere.
With the mask on in the Oval Office.
No, yeah, that, but another one where he says, he looks up and he's he says, salute the Marines.
Right.
And he doesn't salute the Marines. And the speculation is that he got the message in his earpiece and that he was supposed to say that, he thought. And no, Joe, you're supposed to actually salute them.
That is so funny.
And, the stress, look.
He used to be like, next card. Oh.
And look, I mean, we're all hopefully going to age, and as you age, things that were easy for you to do years past become harder to do, and I have sympathy for this aging buffoon, but he's...
Charles, not to be ageist, but just like you can't be under 35 and run for president, why is there not a maximum age? I mean, if you were hiring an executive and the guy was 80, wouldn't that be a consideration?
It really depends. It can't be, actually, but legally, but I think it just really depends. In this case, though, it's not that it's not his age. It's not just simply his age. It's that he can't string a sentence together. In that inauguration, in quotes, speech, it seemed to me that he started out with a certain amount of vim and vigor, and by the middle of it, it was going like, "Can you give me another shot, Coach?" Another shot of a
He
gentleman.
had a few gaffes for sure.
Yeah, it was he said rural and urban or something?
Yeah,
Urban and rural?
then he also like had to kind of like repeat something and improvise it a little bit. I noticed.
Yeah.
And he's a totally uninspiring and disingenuous speech.
And did you notice that Kamala Harris said in her swearing in, she said something like that she promised to preserve and defend the Constitution from all enemies, foreign and domestic, and Biden didn't say that.
He didn't?
I didn't. I may have misheard, but I didn't hear him say it.
I'm surprised she didn't raise her right hand and say, I promise that, I better not even say this on YouTube or they'll throw me off, but she's got plans for Joe Biden, I think.
That's right. But I think that is the playbook now. That their goal is to have him be in for a dignified short period. I read that Kamala and her husband couldn't move into the vice presidential residence because it needs repairs.
Yeah, I heard that too.
And I wonder what
What
repairs
was Mike Pence doing in there that they need to repair?
I don't know. Look at that. That's out at the Beat Center.
That was, I remember, open, and I found it strange that it was still open. But it's sort of a wreck over here, Charles.
Well, you can sit in there.
We're getting a lot of radio interference at
Yeah,
that.
we'll be through it in about a block, I hope. Remember, we saw the Chick-fil-A back there.
Yeah, there's another one. And also Krispy Kreme. Wow, they're really stocked up with donuts right now. I'm surprised there's not a line.
Yeah, when they first opened, there was a line around the corner here.
Yeah, there usually is a line for Krispy Kreme.
Yeah. So we're nearly there, but across the street you see space available.
Oh, now wait a minute. No, that's not where they were having the sample sale at the beach.
No, that's in Fifth
somewhere
Avenue.
else.
Fifth Avenue. And that's a porn movie place, Vivid Video
Yeah.
there? Does that look closed to you?
You know, I don't know. I only noticed that for the first time a little while ago. I'm not sure what that's doing there. When I used to live in LA, their main LA office was very close to where I lived. Like when you come off the highway, you would pass it.
Interesting.
I don't know what they're doing in there. I guess I'm pretty sure it's illegal to make porno movies in New York, so I'm not sure why they have an office, but people can look into that.
I don't know. Well, here we are. We're getting close to Bryant Park. And it's amazing that across the street here, these 4 buildings, amazing they're still up. You would think that somebody would buy them, knock them down.
Crush them and make a huge office building.
Yeah.
So I haven't been watching Andrew Cuomo lately. I've been preoccupied with other things. Has he made any stupid announcements that we should talk about?
I think almost on a daily basis. I do my level best not to engage with Andrew Cuomo because I find,
Yeah.
I'd rather watch non-stop commercials for Dupuytren's contraction. You know what that is?
Uh-uh.
A bent portion of your anatomy disease.
Oh. Now, what's his name? Mike Lindell with My Pillow is having a rough time. I think Bed and Bath and a couple of other places decided they don't like that pillow anymore.
I would have thought, why would you need to go into Bed Bath & Beyond to buy those pillows? And on a related topic, how many pillows do Americans buy? And
I think I've had the same one for 20 years.
yeah.
And it's not, well, it's My Pillow, but it's not.
Do you have a My Pillow?
I mean, it
It's
is
your pillow,
My
but it's
Pillow.
not from My Pillow.
No, it's just a regular like Bed and Bath. I don't even know who makes the pillow. You just go in there and buy
his
a
story
pillow.
is quite special. He was a crack addict. He was really in bad shape, and he turned his life around, and he's a multi-millionaire. But his ads are so annoying.
It's very Tom Carvel that he's
Oh, yeah.
advertising this stuff. So here's another one of these places closed.
To buy used
Video games?
games and stuff.
Yeah, I mean, I think all of those businesses are going to go out pretty soon. I think most of the game consoles now have app store type ways of selling you that stuff. But yeah, Cuomo was popping off the other day about how important it is to reopen the city, but we've passed the critical mass where you could tell people to reopen businesses, but now it's beyond decree. It's going to be who has money left to do that, who has the will left to do that, and who wants to stay here as it becomes increasingly dangerous to be hanging out in New York City.
Right. And there's still no guarantee that there won't be COVID-21 and
Right.
COVID-22.
Well, they're already saying they have other strains, and California, Charles, paused. They love that word, pause. They paused the vaccine because of too many
Right.
negative outcomes.
Right. And then you had the lawn garden ornament gnome.
Yeah, he's back in fashion now.
Well, did you see? I mean, he's saying, there's a headline at Zero Hedge that Fauci's Biden, was it?
Yeah, Biden-led COVID-19 team, Fauci-led Biden COVID-19 team is shocked at the poor response by the Fauci-led Trump COVID-19 team. Exactly. I mean, that was a well-written headline.
Yeah. And then the pack of baying wolves in the White House press corps, which would, if Kayleigh McEnany, the Trump press secretary, said, "I'd like to give each of you $1 billion. You don't have to pay taxes on it. See, you can't stop increasing inequality. It's outrageous." But I mean, she just tore her every utterance to shreds. The toughest questions they could come up with yesterday was,
What
Jen
flavor ice
Psaki,
cream?
yeah, what's your favorite ice cream? And can we get a pair of, I'm making this up obviously, can we get a pair of Converse sneakers like Kamala Harris's? You know, I mean, it was.
Yeah, I saw something saying about how her fashion is now the new power suit or whatever.
To wear to
Like
the job that you won't
sneakers
have.
and, yeah, black skinny jeans and an overcoat or whatever she's wearing.
Yeah. Well,
Yeah.
it's just again. I see this kind of stuff best looking at contrasts. You take the same function, which is a press corps supposedly asking questions, holding an administration to account. You see what they did when they want to be vicious, what they can do, and then when they
Right.
want to just say, "Oh yeah, Barack Obama doesn't want to give a press conference for months," no problem. He walks on water. He's got better things to do. We couldn't possibly. I remember Wolf Blitzer. I hardly ever watch CNN, but I happened to be watching around the Obamacare time frame, and people were struggling to understand how you could provide this insurance that covered all sorts of things that weren't covered under our other insurance at a lower cost, and give this insurance to people who weren't previously in the pool, without dramatically increasing the number of doctors, nurses, and healthcare facilities, which cost something.
Next question.
And Wolf was back and forthing with one of the guests, and he actually asked the question something like this. He said, "Do you think we're not smart enough to understand the genius of Barack Obama when it comes to healthcare?" Like, Wolf, yeah, I know you're not smart enough. It was just. And so I actually, for a variety of reasons, we had an old TV that was replaced with a new TV, and there are all kinds of problems getting it synced up. And so I haven't actually watched television for about 2 weeks at all. And I'm actually enjoying it. I'm thinking that maybe I'll keep doing that.
I haven't watched television for an extremely long time.
Right.
I mean, at YouTube I'm watching constantly, but regular television, I canceled cable years ago.
Right, and when we went down to DC on the 5th, I haven't been traveling a long time, but I was shocked to see that you could actually get YouTube
In the hotel.
in a hotel, which is really something.
Yep.
And so watch this bike. This guy is meandering around. We've just crossed 42nd Street. And we're...
But Charles, Gina Haspel rather quietly and abruptly resigned.
Yeah.
Not much was really said about that.
Yeah, I think I gave an interview to our friend Katya Banova in Sputnik, where I said the final weeks of the Trump presidency reminded me of kind of a country western song. I fought the swamp and the swamp won.
They did.
Yeah, and they really won, and then this devil incarnate Brennan and Comey and coming out of the woodworks now dancing not only on Trump's grave, but on the graves of any supporters. I mean, the freshly, the to be
Get
built,
out of here with that noisy stuff.
to be built or to be dug graves, perhaps by the future grave inhabitants ourselves. I mean, they're just getting ready to slaughter anybody who thought that backing away from corrupt, unregulated globalism made sense. And I've actually, in the history that I can remember as an adult, I don't know of a time where the winning side has been so nakedly and openly vindictive,
Yeah.
promoting violence. I mean,
Right.
they're not talking about merely chewing you out. They want you
No job.
no job, no ability to interact.
Well, that's what they've been doing to me for 4 years, trying to cancel Crowdsource the Truth, trying to shut down the YouTube channels, putting out fake negative information about me. It's really interesting, Charles. You know, when I look back, there's a lot of people who started watching Crowdsource the Truth after the pandemic, and then, you know, there's been certain key events that have attracted people, the Vegas shooting, etc. People who have been watching since the beginning in 2016 or early 2017 might recall this Port of Charleston incident,
Right.
where information was brought to me by George Webb, and he went to great lengths to convince me that it was true, create a whole ruckus. There were people on the live stream agitating in the chat, saying, oh, call the Coast Guard, you know. Very similar in concept to what was going on at the Capitol building.
Right.
They create a big event that is, you know, obviously not good, and then they blame it on someone who was an unwitting participant who knew nothing about it, and they try to make it seem like, in my case, like it was my fault. And in the case of the Capitol building, they blame it on Trump. Right, yeah, I forgot about that. But it's the same tactic, you know, they make these fake hoax events and blame it on whoever they're trying to blame it on.
It's fake news, Jason.
Well, and they persistently push it out. Even now, George's brother is still, you know, he's got a book that he wrote about it filled with fake crap. He's got lawsuits that he's talking about it. And this is what they're doing with Trump. They're just insistent on impeaching him for this thing that was pre-planned. They ignore all the evidence that refutes their fake story and promote fake evidence. It's just so frustrating, Charles. They do not play straight.
Well, and going back to Biden's speech, when he got up there and he said there are 400,000 Americans dead from COVID, it's not true.
Right, because they just found out, this is what I wanted to tell you along those lines. There's, what's her name, Cahill? There's an Irish scientist who did an interview with James Corbett. She says she's going to sequence the PCR tests, and that's going to, like, I guess it's some kind of genetic something or other, that's going to tell her if it was COVID or influenza.
Right.
And she said it's influenza.
Yeah, I'm sure that's right.
I think the World Health Organization said something about.
Right. I think we're looking for 150.
Oh, yeah, right. Oh, right. Yes, I saw. It's right near that pub. But, I mean, that's pretty interesting that Cullen's been talking about that for a while.
Right. But for the incoming resident of the White House, not President of the United States,
Right.
resident and dictator of the regime, to stand up in front of the non-existent crowd with cameras trained on him and to start with that gigantic lie and then move on to the lie that here we are together and isn't this peaceful transfer of power great? Why? Where it's just 120, it's on this side of the street. Tower 45, it's right here. So it's fitting, actually, that Hillary Clinton's secret
Tower
office would be
45.
right opposite Connolly's pub.
Right.
I would guess, actually, she was there and the workers were upstairs, but she'd be at a corner of that pub. They'd have a nice, gigantic vat of Chardonnay above her and put her on one of those water beds.
It's named after Trump, Charles.
That's right.
Tower 45.
Yeah.
Well, so, I mean,
Why did she need this office?
I don't know.
I mean, she had the Chappaqua home, she had the Washington, D.C. home, she had political campaign offices, she had Clinton Foundation offices, she had Global Initiative offices, she had Vital Voices offices. I mean, it doesn't make, like, it's just highly suspicious.
It was Suite 2700. Do you want to go in there and
No,
ask them
no,
anything?
Make you put on a mask, all bullshit.
It's Bobby Vans is in this building also. Isn't that a fancy steakhouse?
I actually knew, I don't know if he still owns it, the owner of Bobby Van's, and it's
Isn't it a guy named Bobby Van?
no. There was a guy called Bobby Van who had a steakhouse on Long Island. This guy was from Joseph was his first name. He bought the Long Island restaurant, and then he created all these Bobby Van's restaurants here in New York. He was very much tied in with the Northern Irish political tough guy movement.
Huh. The tough guy party. Well, so what do you think about the roommate hotels? That's a strange. What do you think, Charles, about this rumor, I guess, that Trump will start his own political party?
Well, he's 74, he'll be 75 in June. We all only have so many days left on the planet. He's had his first taste, I'd say at best, it's bittersweet taste of life in Washington, D.C.
Yeah.
It certainly wouldn't make sense to go and try to run and control the Republican Party, because he did a lot for the Republican brand, a lot positive for the Republican brand. And Bitch McConnell and Kevin McDorky, McCarthy, and others just stabbed him in the back. Paul Ryan. And
Mike Pence sitting there at the inauguration with it was like.
Yeah. And so, as I wrote in 2014 in the Washington Times, a 10-part series about the different things that I think you needed to do to reform the political system for the benefit of the worker, private sector worker, there's some certain structural things that need to be addressed. And I think Trump did not want to address them or did not feel he could address them in his first term. But it starts, for example, with Washington, D.C. itself. I think America needs a new capital city. I mean, the capital city where Washington, D.C. is, where the bureaucrats live, where the inertia is filled with people who are quite certain that they're going to be there long after any elected politician will be there. And they can wait you out as they waited Trump out in case of declassifying stuff that should have been declassified in 17. Not in the last minute of 2021. So should we go over to 8th and down maybe for a change, or do you want to?
Sure. Well, you want to just check out what's going on in Times Square here for a moment?
Of course. It's busier than it used to be, but it's not terribly busy.
Right.
I like to stay away from the petitioners if possible.
That looked like Chinese construction workers. What's going on over there?
We can walk up there if you want. Looks like there's some kind of nascent process, maybe. But normally when New York is hopping, even in January, there'll be a lot more people on the street at this time of day than you see.
Wow, there's a Krispy Kreme with a huge sign on it. See that?
I know.
Fresh over there. Donuts.
I don't actually. I don't know where you're looking.
Right over there. Charles, I have to say, unfortunately, in the end, Trump failed to drain the swamp. He failed to hashtag lock her up.
Right.
There's some really important key things that he failed to do.
Right.
And it's really quite troubling.
It is indeed. And a lot of damage will be done in a short period of time now by Biden and company.
Yeah. No doubt. Now, is it a protest over there? I think it's just people hanging out, maybe playing music and doing Instagram stuff.
Yeah. I think there's some characters over there. And I like to stay away from
Right,
that.
exactly. I don't know.
Let's just go down this block here.
Sure.
But
we can check out Scientology over there.
Yeah. Speaking of something else that I'm not going to do. Interesting. Yeah, I mean, this is very light traffic, no car traffic.
Yeah. It actually does feel like it's going to snow. So when is the polar vortex expected to do whatever it's going to do?
So now I'm the weatherman too?
Well, I don't know. I mean, it's like for a week they've been saying, or longer. Got the Hulk there saying hello, Charles.
No interest. Cops over there.
Oh yeah, cops hanging out with the Avengers. What's that about?
Well, there's a bunch of there's signs over there. Those guys over there, you see?
Look, they're making friends with Captain America. These cops are just wasting time.
There are a bunch of. I think there maybe will be a protest right here. See all these cop cars?
Yeah.
Let's stay away from the protest. Sorry. Yeah, Scientology. You want to? I can leave you off there, Jason, if
No,
you need
thanks.
to go to your regular meeting.
There's still no sign of when Broadway is going to reopen, huh?
I think March is the earliest. Counterterrorism.
Now, Charles, what about this proposed domestic terrorism bill? A lot of people
That
think
is
it's
so scary.
Patriot
stuff.
Act 2.0, and that's another thing that had a lot of language that was very reminiscent of what was being said about me when that Port of Charleston incident happened. Remember, George's brother spent a lot of time sending letters to senators and law enforcement all around the country trying to say that I had done something that I didn't do, that podcasts shouldn't be allowed to report the news because they're not responsible. We need qualified news broadcasts. And
Yeah, I mean like the people who work at CNN, those type of people?
well, I mean, obviously what they were trying to do was to introduce this idea that the concept of just anyone reporting the news is dangerous and that it should be censored.
Isn't that what happens on CNN? Anyone reports
Well,
the
that's what I mean. I mean, CNN, their reporter was with this guy, John Sullivan,
Right.
who there's a lot of evidence, including testimony from his own brother to the FBI, saying that Sullivan was the leader of this riot.
Right.
But there's been nothing about that. I haven't heard Nancy Pelosi or anybody in Congress who's calling to impeach Trump talk about that. And I mean, again, along the lines of them relying on lies and suppressing any actual evidence, if and when they do get to this trial impeaching Trump, will any of that John Sullivan evidence be introduced? Probably not.
So, as we speak, they should be debating in the Senate whether or not there's going to be a Trump trial. Wow, that's the Paramount Hotel there? That used to be a hot place. And it looks pretty dead to me. Yeah, this is the Paramount Hotel across the street, completely dead. In the early 90s, that was a hot hotel with a great bar. And
Well, I mean, obviously it's catering to people who come to New York to go to Broadway shows, and they're all closed.
what makes you say that, Jason? How can you tell?
It's funny, Charles, in Hollywood around the Scientology thing, there was always a lot of events and things happening. I mean, you never really, I guess I don't hang out here very much, but I didn't hear too much about Scientology in New York City.
Yeah. Well, here you are. We're almost to 8th Avenue. I guess we'll hang a Louis on 8th. Go downtown.
Yeah, sure. Thor Equities has a lot of space available.
They do. They were the operation that suggested that I should be interested in investing in their funds, because the great thing about owning real estate in this location is that you lose money for quite a few years until you make money.
Oh, that does sound good.
That's like that was a sales pitch that just made me say, this is fantastic. I tell you what, can you bring me a few forms for the Clinton Foundation while you're at it too? Do I get to do that as well?
Well, so Charles, a lot of people have historically complained about the title of this show.
Why?
Well, because they say you're not actually closing in. And now that Trump has failed to drain the swamp, what do you think? Can we continue to close in?
Yes,
or?
we can.
Yeah, because Charles Ortel is walking around doesn't sound like a very impressive show.
Yeah. Well, the facts remain that the Clinton Foundation and many charities like it were organized as public charities that are not allowed to engage in political activities, partisan political activities, or to enrich the operators of the charities, and that each of these entities has to file information, and that if you don't file information, there's no statute of limitations. in cases where you haven't filed. So there are prosecutions to be had. I will grant you that we don't seem to have a will to prosecute anyone other than Republicans or Trump supporters. But when you look at a map of America, 80% plus of the counties are red. Thanks, we get the point.
What? The guy's going through a red light, honking like a maniac.
Yeah, in a kidnap van. But so it is certainly possible that, as Joe Biden suggests, we're in the midst of dark days ahead, and that they have a 100-day plan to bury the opposition. It's certainly possible.
Opposition meaning us.
Exactly. And people who watch this show and people who believe, as I think many do, that the 2020 November presidential election was indeed stolen.
I think you got to be careful about saying that. They're going to remove things from YouTube for that.
Yeah, well, again, I think that may be, and we'll have an interruption and we'll find a new YouTube. Because I didn't sign on to the program that says I give up my
right to free speech.
My rights to free speech because some eggheads in Google or elsewhere have decided that those rights don't apply if I want to use their platform. So I think there has to be a reckoning, but I do grant you that the other side has the upper hand right now, and they have shown that they're ruthless.
Hang on a second.
Yeah. You want to go to the Shake Shack?
No. They're ruthless, and they have an aversion to facts.
And they're stone cold criminals. I mean, you're not dealing with people that you come let us reason together. These are people who, I want your shit. I'm going to take it.
Yeah, do what we want, or we're going to burn it down.
Right. And so this can work if temporarily for Biden and the Democrats, so long as the capital markets cooperate. So long as the people who look at the creditworthiness of the United States and our constituent government entities and companies say, yeah, okay, fine. Interest rates as low as they are, keep it going. You want to borrow more money? No problem. But the second...
Well, this is good news, though.
What?
The McRib is back. I think people like
Gotta love that.
Yeah, I don't really eat that.
What is this? Wait a minute. The Playpen, ladies welcome, male section now open.
I think it's like a strip club.
Yeah, it's not doing so well.
Yeah.
And, here's awful cold, and here's...
Yeah, it's getting much colder for sure.
Poor guy out there panhandling. So now we're very close to Port Authority, which is...
one of the scummiest places in the whole city.
Yeah, and that's after a big upgrade.
Right. It used to have like a half an inch of urine on the floor.
A bit more? What about
the
the vomit? Didn't they mix in vomit?
I never noticed vomit, but there was like when I was in college, the first time I went in there, I just was shocked. I mean, it's truly disgusting.
And all of these shifty-looking people trying to befriend people who are runaways coming in by bus into Port Authority and take them direct to the massage parlors.
Yeah, for people who don't know, Port Authority is the bus terminal here in the city. And I mean, for whatever reason, bus travel just seems, I guess it's inexpensive, so it just sort of attracts some very unsavory types.
Well, actually, and I think, just like you said, Abe Lincoln, it's a bust terminal. Busted and the terminal.
Busted and disgusted terminal.
Yeah. But actually, Greyhound and I think a few of the other places revamped their schedules when it was operating properly. This is a good look. Pants down below your butt.
Should we go this way through Times Square? Or
I don't want to go through it.
Yeah, okay.
No, thank you.
No problem. The sun is setting. It's definitely getting cooler. Now, I thought that cake Maestro or whatever his name is store closed.
Which one?
Ace of Cakes. Right over there. Isn't that?
I don't know.
Ace of Cakes.
But just finishing on Greyhound. So what they did is, it used to be in the 60s and 70s and maybe afterwards, if you took a Greyhound bus anywhere, it stopped on the way to Washington, D.C. like 25 times. Newark, and here, and there, whatever. They reformed it So that one of the times, the first time I did a radio show for the Washington Times, I took the bus. And I was
I
amazed.
noticed the Washington Times yesterday when I was,
Oh, you did?
pulling out.
So you got on it, and the damn thing, what are we doing here? We're going downtown?
Yeah.
So, God almighty.
The Greyhound bus when you were going to Washington,
the first
DC.
stop was College Park, Maryland.
That's
And
good.
it was zippity doo dah. There you were, and had internet on it. The bathrooms didn't reek. It was not bad. It was cheap as hell. It was like $40 one way or $50 one way.
Yeah, I took a bus to DC one time a few years ago with that tall dope, and it was inexpensive, but it was super uncomfortable. Tiny, tiny seat.
Not the time I went. But
Now wait a minute, that's the new Pfizer logo right there.
yep, and that's the New York Times building, isn't it?
Yeah. I don't know if people can see
I think
that.
we can cross.
Well, Pfizer logo went away. Yeah, the New York Slime building.
Right. You can go into Schnipper's Quality Kitchen.
I've never eaten in there.
Yeah. You've never schnipped?
Well, when they say quality, it's not very specific. Is it high quality or low quality?
What do you think, Jason? Expensive, low quality.
Yeah.
And this is the Slimes building, which is, they used to occupy a large percentage of it, but I think they've shrunk the number of employees at the Times who are in there. In 2009, when I worked with Joe Nocera, who was then a famous New York Times columnist, now he's at Bloomberg, when I went in to talk to him about GE, we went into the nice office area, and it's super high-end, or it was set up as a super high-end place to placate the prima donna employees of the New York Times, who largely are overpaid. And I think, though, that this expensive building will be one of the undoings of the Times. The other
Really?
is, well, yeah. I mean, the Times, back in the heyday of the internet bubble, people started to think about the Times and its library of information as something that could be really, really valuable. They were going online. They had a lot of properties. And there were arguments that the Times was worth a tremendous amount of money. I haven't checked recently at the market value of the Times, but it's way, way off the peak. And why? I mean, forgetting the political bent and the hysteria that you get out of the Times. What troubles me about the Times, really, in the Wall Street Journal, began in the '80s when I was involved in a lot of business transactions that were covered in the media. And I was in the boardroom, or I was meeting with the CEO.
And it wasn't accurate.
I knew exactly what was going on. I had, as Bannon likes to say, the receipts. And I also thought I knew what was going to happen next in most of these transactions. And you would see breathless reporting from Charlie Gasparino and a bunch of other people, or sources close to the deal say this and say that. No reputable person close to any of those deals
Would tell you that.
was supposed to tell you anything about the deal. So I looked at it and said, why do I care what's in the Times and business? And then I started to say, or in the Wall Street Journal, then I said, well, wait a minute. They can't get business right. They're probably not going to get politics right. And that was back when the New York Times cost the
Careful, this
newsstand
guy's about to back up, I think.
$1. Last time I checked, which was 2000, when we met with Shelby Halliday, 2018, the newsstand price of the Wall Street Journal was like $5 a day.
That's crazy.
You know, why would I do that? You could get five $1 slices of pizza for that.
That, or an entire month of Crowdsource the Truth
That's
by going
true.
to subscribestar.com
That's true.
/ Crowdsource the Truth, or patreon.com / Crowdsource the Truth. Charles, I'm not sure if I ever told you the significance of that New York Times building in terms of the advent of Crowdsource the Truth.
Well, I think you should enlighten us.
Well, maybe you've seen in the apartment that little 3D printed odd camera with 4 lenses on it. That was a 360-degree stereoscopic camera that I designed when
I knew that.
VR was becoming the next big thing.
Uh-huh.
And so I was trying to make 21st century 3D into a VR company, although I didn't really like VR video recording that much. But anyway, somebody had invited me to a virtual reality conference in that New York Times building. And it was one of these things where some, Wall Street muckety-muck was up there, and they're giving all kinds of speeches, and this guy's talking about how the virtual reality market is going to be worth, $30 billion by 20 whatever. And I remember sitting there thinking, you know what? This is exactly the same incorrect crap that they were saying 10 years ago about the 3D industry and 3D cinema, and all that turned out to be wrong.
Let this guy go. Big hulking guy. We can keep going.
All that turned out to be wrong, and I just said to myself, you know what? This is crap and nonsense. VR is crap. I'm going to go home and I'm going to start doing crowdsource the truth full-time as my job, and I literally left in the middle of the conference, walked out.
So this means we have to give credit to the New York Times
for being stupid.
For creating crowdsourcing, for inducing you
for creating oh, wait a minute. Look, here's another Weed World store, Charles.
Where?
Right here.
And money changing.
This is Weed World.
Oh, while you were there, I don't know if you noticed this. Do you know the new policy in Washington, D.C.?
What?
I'm not making this up. I haven't tried to confirm it, but I read multiple accounts that in Washington, D.C., to induce you to get vaccinated, if you agree to get vaccinated, they'll give you a free bag of weed.
What?
Yeah.
Who the hell came up with that?
Come on, you're talking about a city where
what kind of
Marion Barry, the mayor, is doing crack on camera.
And then they give you the weed and arrest you, and you can be like, the bitch set me up.
But remember, here's the mayor. I won't say how I know this, but I am aware of the contents of the tape that they had him on.
They broadcast it.
Well, it's more than they broadcast. It's really bad. And this guy in a Washington, D.C. courtroom to defend himself, he has his supporters show up in T-shirts that say, not the bitch, D.A. bitch, set me up.
Oh, that's exactly what he says to the FBI.
I know, but here his women are out there in the courtroom, and you think that you'd get a fair shake as a conservative in Washington, D.C.? It's like, you gotta be kidding.
Wait, did you notice this, Charles?
What?
It is a Fonzie sticker right there.
Huh.
That's strange, isn't it?
It is.
That's like they used to have these stickers all around in the taxis that said Andre the Giant has a posse. Are you familiar with that?
I don't. No, that's not something.
I'm not really sure what it was all about, but it's one of those interesting.
Want some flip-flops?
What?
Want some flip-flops?
No, I don't
This
know.
is one of the many junk sections of Manhattan where you can...
Well, this is a kind of a...
We can go maybe...
Whoop, whoop. Oh, sorry.
There's a rat right there.
Whoop, where?
Right there. Hey, rat. How you doing? Nice to see you. A demon rat.
Oh, yeah, look at him.
Look at that.
They're
We can start a wildlife show.
Yeah, exactly. New York City wildlife.
The rat catcher.
Well, what I was going to say is this is definitely a less desirable neighborhood. This
You think?
Well, this is where the 21st Century 3D office used to be, because after September 11th,
You didn't want to be
the
downtown.
business was hanging by a thread, and I had to get out of our expensive office, and I got a much less expensive office over here. And then this neighborhood actually improved during the, I guess we were in there about 14 years.
Wow.
Yeah. And then expanded to LA.
And the rest is history.
Well, I was going to say got a little overextended, and then when 3D collapsed, that was it.
Well, you think we should risk going over to 7th Avenue and down, or do you want to stay?
It'll disconnect the broadcast, I think. Let's go down 8th, at least a little past Penn Station.
Right? Okay.
Oh, you know what we could do, if you want, Charles? We could enter the new Moynihan
Without a mask?
part of... Oh, right, I didn't bring a mask. So I guess we can't do that. Joe Biden. Some people... Oh, yeah, I wanted to address this as well. There were some people watching or commenting on yesterday's broadcast. Some people like to make comments on videos without actually watching the video.
Right.
But so you're like, oh, why are you wearing a Biden hat? But I was doing that obviously to avoid.
blend in.
Yeah, I didn't want to get recognized and beaten up. Here's this tennis place, Charles.
Oh, wow. This is the
Pretty
worst
interesting, right?
idea I've seen.
Why? just too expensive, right?
No, you don't want to teach people how to play tennis on other than a normal sized court because you get into very bad habits.
Oh, it's smaller than a
Right.
regular tennis court. But I don't know if this place actually cares about teaching anybody about
No.
tennis. It's just a front for selling weed to little kids. Wait, Weed World Clinics? What kind of clinic? Are they doing tennis clinics?
No.
What is that all about?
Weed World Candies. I wonder who's behind this thing.
Well, I mean, don't you, Charles, if you had young kids and there was a weed candy truck right outside, wouldn't you object to that?
I would, actually.
Yeah.
And here's the Taco Bell. You see, this is a lot of stations where people who might have made $15 per hour are
Oh yeah, they
displaced.
have the ATMs as well.
Yeah. I really hope, like in the movie Trading Places, the people.
Sorry, one second. Look at how smart this is, Charles. We've got a diesel generator polluting the city to turn on this light when there's got to be a ton of electricity under this street.
Genius. Now we have a whole collection of beggars in front of this McDonald's, so let's go buy it quickly.
And the Bentley SUV.
Yeah, and that's the construction workers.
Whoa, yeah, with the, wow.
Yeah, that makes sense, sure. There's nothing wrong with that picture. Construction workers driving Bentley SUVs,
I wonder how much that costs. It's
Probably
probably
250.
200 grand, yeah.
250, maybe 300.
That's a crazy, you could buy 10 of my cars for that. Get a fleet of Ford Escapes or one Bentley.
Yeah.
Well, it's beautiful light tonight as the sun sets on
On
day
the
2.
American Republic.
Yeah, that happened yesterday, the sunset.
Yeah.
I really, you know, I don't think we've really fully,
Plumbed the depths yet.
yeah, I'm in shock a bit, I think, still. Oh my God, Organics Michelob, look at that.
Let's keep walking.
I know people who are drinking Michelob are concerned about organic. They could bring that to the Grand Poobah Buffalo Lodge guy who demanded organic food in jail and got it. Why? I don't understand why they would do that. Who ever heard of somebody complaining about the food in jail and getting that addressed? I thought that's part of the point of jail is that it's terrible.
It should be humane.
Yeah, but I mean, they could give you food that's not organic and that's humane. I mean,
Yeah.
that's like saying I need an orthopedic pillow to sleep. Like
My pillow.
Yeah, I need a heater and there's no television in the room.
That's what they're going to make Mike Lindell do. He's now you're out of the Bed Bath & Beyond market. You're exclusively serving
Sell
the
it to
jail
jail.
market. Do you want your pillow with a file in it, or do you want it with a metal, a knife?
It was disappointing the last few days. It was a very, very bad showing on the exit. I felt that could have been handled much better.
Yeah, it was. We began to be nervous on the broadcast when we didn't see stuff actually dropping that should have dropped.
Yeah.
We saw. I mean, Donald Trump aptly characterized Jeb Bush as being low energy, and in the final days of his first term, maybe his only term, he was definitely low energy. You know, the guy who was out there tweeting all the time and egging people on. Something happened.
So that's what I was going to say. Is that I mean, look, I'm disappointed in Donald Trump. We're in a bad situation. I would have loved to have seen him stay on the whole, go back to work.
Right.
This is no worse than Ebola or whatever. But when he folded to we're at war with coronavirus, it was sort of all downhill from there.
Yeah.
I still really can't believe these people dedicated to the 17th letter of the alphabet who think that there's still something waiting that's going to come.
Yeah. And now we have, I mean, on the plus side, 8 years under Obama, and we managed to survive. I mean,
That looks like a problem for the broadcast.
you want to turn around and go?
No, we'll make a left because it's pointing that way, but if we walk in front of that dish, it could have a negative
So
impact.
we'll just make a hard
Yeah, well,
left.
hug the edge of the building and stay away from that. So, but I wonder, they're broadcasting something there. We can see the monitor on inside the front of the thing. How have you been doing as far as hearing any riots at night?
I didn't hear one last night. Doesn't mean there wasn't one, but
Silent riot?
it's a nice, inviting. You get to Penn Station. You got this guardrail here.
Hey, that Turn on Nog used to be down the street over here. They moved
What is it?
It's like an Irish bar, pub, restaurant.
All customers are required to wear a face covering.
So Amtrak is now located in the Moynihan Train Hall. I didn't know that they moved the whole Amtrak in there.
Yeah, but you would think, again, if you had city planners who were worth a shit, you'd say, all right, look, when people get off a train or a bus or an airport, a plane, their first touch of New York City should be welcoming.
Right.
You should feel like, oh, this is really special.
Let's put all the homeless people and maniacs over
Exactly.
there.
Drug addicts, beggars, deranged people. We'll have no decent hotels nearby, no welcoming, no mall, then we'll have federales, state troopers, Amtrak police.
Oh, wow, yeah, look at that. You don't often see the state trooper cars here.
Actually, you do.
Well, I've seen it, we just did a move with this that I didn't know you could do.
That's a tricked out vehicle.
Yes, it is. Let's see, how do I get it back now?
I don't know.
There we go. No, maybe not. What did I do?
I
Wow.
don't know, Jason.
I got it totally turned around here.
There you go.
I don't know. Something screwed up happened.
Maybe the thing got affected by the weed shop.
I don't know what happened. There we go.
We're back. Sort of.
Now we're back.
Okay, good.
The other thing I saw that Joe Biden is planning on doing, which is another one of these things that I thought had already happened, mask mandate for traveling on public transportation. And then I also saw something that United Airlines, I think, had the biggest loss since 2005 maybe, or something really bad, and they're warning about, like a stockholder warning about,
Well, of course.
it's not going to be pretty.
Of course. You can't. It's long ago that I did this work, but the airline industry is as simple as any other supply and demand-based industry. If you put a whole bunch of supply out there, that is to say what are called available seat miles, planes, if you figure out how many seats can hold passengers and what's the cargo capacity, whatever, you figure all that stuff out, you model it out for the whole industry, and if you have a sudden increase in capacity, you're going to have a sudden drop in prices and possibly in revenues, in aggregate revenues, and an increase in losses. And that's if you're at the margin. But if you shut the whole global industry down,
Right, no one's
who's
traveling.
going to pay the plane leases and the maintenance and the workers, essential workers, and after a while, people will change their preferences. They'll say they're going to not travel as much. They will Zoom. They will not willy-nilly jump on a plane and go to Florida for the weekend on pleasure.
Right.
So that whole industry, I
Really
think, has changed forever, as is the hotel industry,
I agree.
as is the car rental industry.
Yeah. And then de Blasio had some rant on either Twitter or maybe his stupid non-Emmy award-winning video show.
As of yet.
Right, give him a week. But he was like, oh, it's outrageous. We need more vaccines. And, we got California shutting down because of too many vaccine injuries. And he's saying, no, we got to hurry up and get more vaccines.
Yeah. Well, thank goodness, he's term limited this November, so he's out. But that's the good news. The bad news is that this guy who's
Yang.
Well, Yang, I don't think will win, but the other guy, Stringer, or what's his
Yeah.
name? He might win.
Doesn't Andrew Yang have more of a nationally known, well, not nationally, doesn't matter, but isn't he just better known than Stringer?
I don't. But there's a whole New York thing. You're not a real New Yorker.
No, but Yang got all pissed off because he's saying he grew up here, and I was like, that's funny. I didn't know that, and he doesn't seem like really a New Yorker.
Well, I would, as I always say when people ask me, did you grow up in New York? I say, well, there's no evidence that I've grown up, but I was raised here. And
Andrew Yang strikes me as a California guy.
yeah, it's too approximate. And his solution, universal basic income, just give everybody free money. Don't worry about it.
I mean, that's just going to break society because it just de-incentivizes people from doing anything and makes everybody want to be lazy and just get free money.
Exactly. Well, I think we're at that point now.
Right. But it also helps people who think that their time is best spent
Smoking
preparing
dope.
for and going around rioting and attacking people.
Peacefully, of course.
Well, I mean, it gives them
Peaceful
a
riots.
funding source to do that.
Right.
I mean, there's a certain number of people who are eventually going to have to stop because they would have to go back to work, but not if you've got your universal basic income coming.
I think once you take a certain amount of time away from being a salaried employee and manage to survive, you don't tend to want to go back and work for somebody else and have a boss. I know that was the case in my own situation. And if you could
horses,
figure out,
doesn't it?
huh?
It smells like horses or something.
Horses?
I don't know, maybe. What do we got going on right here?
I don't know. It's an ambulance, I think. But these people coming up the food chain and got out of college or professional school and maybe worked for a year or two and now have been locked down, probably fired, somehow are surviving. And then they see the babbling bartender be an icon, AOC, they say,
Right.
or Ossoff. I mean, Ossoff to me is really a caricature of a stupid-ass, destructive individual. I mean, a guy who would decide that he was going to go work for a congressman and answering mail for that idiot congressman from Georgia, I think it's Hank Johnson or something,
don't
wherever
know
he's
that
from,
guy.
who told the military guy that, aren't you concerned about we move troops
Island capsizing?
if we move troops from Okinawa to Guam, aren't you concerned about the island capsizing? And the look of the guy's face when he realized
Yeah, they were serious.
that was supposedly a serious question, and that this guy was performing oversight on him. That's one of the all-time great.
Stupid comments
Right.
anybody ever made.
Right. But
We
you're
just
so
walked by
smart.
another restaurant that has their outdoor thing closed up.
And that guy, I mean, you're sitting there, you're trying to think about, in Washington, D.C., who can I work with who will help me learn the ropes of this great city and the political process? I think I'll go to work for arguably the dumbest, long-standing member of Congress, this guy. And Ossoff, as a junior level person on his resume, says that later that what he was doing, he was a national security advisor to this congressman.
Wow.
All he was doing was somebody would be asked, a piece of mail would come into the congressman's office and say, did you really just say that you thought the island of Guam was going to tip over? And Austin would say, oh, of course not. You must have misheard it. I'm making that part up.
That's so funny. That jackhammer deal, I'm sure there's a lot of people watching who think that that's exactly what New York is all the time.
Well, it used to be a lot of that noise. When I was a kid, the buses belched smoke. The subways were cold in the winter and hot in the summer. And there's dirt everywhere.
They put air conditioning in the subways while I was in the 90s.
Really?
We used to just have the windows open. And
Where did you stable your horse?
yeah, I'm allergic to horses.
Are you?
Yeah.
Horses or horse meat or both?
I ate horse meat in France without knowing it, and found out that what cheval means after that. But I don't. I'm allergic to standing next to them. They make the hair, I guess, makes
Really?
me sneeze.
So So you're not going to be on the Olympic equestrian team.
No.
That's all right.
Well, Charles, we're getting very close to the end of today's show. It is really quite cold now,
Well,
and dark.
well, the art department outdid itself, of course, with the poster.
Oh yes, we forgot to discuss that. Thank you. This is a very excellent Hitchcock film, Vertigo, but now we got VertiJoe with his little Chinese logo there in the upper left, and him in his default looking stupid.
Yeah, that's when he dresses up and prepares. He looks stupid. Normally, he looks like Red Skelton drunk.
He's got a T-shirt that says "I woke up like this."
Or this is me dressed up.
Yeah. But I mean, I guess we have to. I don't know. What's the next thing Trump is going to do? He's just going to hang out and be retired, I guess, right?
I think he'll wait for a period of time here and wait and see. As we speak, perhaps people in the chat will tell us whether or not there's going to be a Senate trial. If there is a trial, Trump will defend himself vigorously.
Yeah.
If they move to just, and he may even move to dismiss the trial.
That would be smart.
But if the Democrats were smart, they'd abandon it because they're going to get their asses kicked.
What's their downside?
Their downside is that in a crucial first 30, 60 days of the first 100 days of Joe Biden's asterisk presidency, that attention will be diverted back to Trump. And attention will focus on what really happened in the election and the evidence that's now surfaced and been vetted by different independent experts, which shows massive fraud.
That would
And
be interesting.
that'll take the wind out of any sails that are propelling, in theory, Joe Biden's presidency forward. Now, here's a nice look, Jason.
It'll take the wind out of the bag, Charles.
Look at this. This is a large
from Whole
amount of
Foods.
garbage.
Yeah, guess who lives in this apartment building?
Is this all from your apartment?
I think it's from the Whole Foods, but it's the same building as my apartment building.
Right, but look at this. I mean, there should be a rule that if this is Whole Foods garbage,
They
that
need
you
their
should
own
have to-
private garbage truck.
you should cart this stuff away. It's just, we saw a rat just up the block,
I know.
right? I mean, rats are probably saying, oh, great, Whole Foods garbage night today.
Yeah.
And don't
Well,
tell me that this isn't a public safety hazard, because it is.
Listen, this and many other reasons why it's time to leave. But with that, Charles, I think we're going to bid everybody a good night.
All right?
I hope people will join me on Subscribestar and Patreon. So what happened was there was a break in the broadcast in Washington, D.C. yesterday, and I believe I have now finally discovered what I need to do to make it take over on the same stream. So people who were watching yesterday's show on Crowdsource the Truth 2, it's unfortunately broken into two segments. Crowdsource the Truth 3 has it in one continuous concatenated segment. But then what I did was I went back to the original recordings and everything, and there was 10 minutes of additional footage. So there is a director's cut version of yesterday's disgraceful events in Washington, D.C., but for people who want to see every minute of it, get on to subscribestar.com/crowdsourcethetruth or patreon.com/crowdsourcethetruth. Become a sponsor. You're going to get access to all the sponsor exclusive stuff and help me keep the show going. Thanks for watching. I'll see everybody tomorrow.